All right, everyone. Thanks again for tuning in. Another episode of Your Day with David here with uh, a very, very special person to my heart, Chris Sybil. And as always, I will go into a little bit about how he and I initially met. He's one of the people that we connected with in college, our freshman year, as we transitioned to that phase of our life. And then today's conversation will revolve around gratitude. Chris was a person and continues to be a person that I am grateful for. And also in the process of some of the change that I have experienced in my life has allowed me to continue to be grateful for the things that I do have, while also giving me some perspective as well as to maybe things I didn't realize I had. Which maybe doesn't know that too much too. But how Chris and I met freshman year of college, and I'll also go a little bit into first impressions. Chris and I did not like each other. We did not. We did not mesh well. Chris was this. Well, this is the thing. Chris and I have not changed either. I would say that we've changed very little from that. In some ways, we've changed very, very much. In other ways, we are still very much the same people we were freshman year. So while I say we did not like each other at the time, we came to like who we each were individually. Chris was this goofy, nerdy, this nerdy guy, and then I came in. I don't even know, how would you describe freshman? I can't describe freshman me, Chris. You'll have to tell me.
I I distinctly remember a yellow cutoff like
Oh yeah.
baseball t-shirt.
I still have that cut off. I
Like
do not wear it.
burned in my memory is you in that cutoff.
Yeah,
And at that time I used to think a cutoff meant a lot about somebody.
it probably did. Probably
But
did.
I have worn cutoffs since then. So it comes
Mm,
full circle.
look at that. Look at us growing. You growing into cutoffs um we were a part of a larger group that floor we were on. We were in the same dorm, and then we were friends too with some people that have been on the podcast earlier. Katie, Alexander, and that crew. Megan, Caitlin, Sarah, gosh,
So,
Marissa, Courtney, Peralt, Ben, most. I guess they are married now, if I'm not mistaken.
oh.
Are they? Courtney and Ben?
I
Oh
was like,
gosh.
oh, I don't know.
Okay, never mind. And if Courtney and Ben ever do watch this, well, I hope I didn't spoil a surprise, right?
Cheers.
Hmm. Anyway, a really all of them a really great group of people at the end of the day. And but I think Chris and I were more friends of acquaintance or of convenience at that time. You know, we stayed friends because that was the friend group, even though we probably didn't mesh too well. And then you'll fast forward, freshman year ended, right? In the blink of an eye. Chris stayed on campus. I moved off campus into my apartment with some guys I met freshman year, Yandy and Drew. And Chris went to this lovely little land we call the Towers. hmm Wow, what a time! And think about it, Chris, that was 6, 7 years ago now. By the way,
Yeah.
your life at Towers. Although you stayed there for a couple of years, or did you stay there till graduation?
I spent my last semester in Eaton Hall, but I
Okay,
was in Towers from sophomore through senior.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so Chris was kind of the guy. Well, I'm not sure really kind of how it happened. I just remember sophomore year, I would be on campus. Maybe I had another class later in the afternoon, or uh, oh, we had finance together, business finance,
Yep.
because I
That's when you pivoted into
yeah,
business.
that's
Yeah.
when. Well, I guess even before that, even before I pivoted into business. I was still in engineering
Hmm.
because um, I was with you that Halloween when my friend Lizzie passed away. I remember that we were heading off to the towers, and then I got that phone call, and I was just like, "Hey, man, like, I got to go," you know.
Hmm.
And so that was, in fact, the
Yeah.
first semester of sophomore year before I transitioned to the business world. Um, and I think I th- I think the reason why that worked out, or how I came to get closer to you sophomore year before all that happened was, I still had very much a love of video games. And there was such a unique crew over there in the towers. And so when I'd hang out with you, I just hop on, um, hop on a bus, get dropped off near towers. And I guess the rest was kind of history. We'd eat dinner there. We'd procrastinate on doing our homework, and et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, people thought you lived there.
Yeah. Yeah, they
You were
did.
there so often.
Yeah. And very fortunate to meet some of the people that I did there. And, we met Adam's sister there, and in that met
Yeah.
Adam, right?
Yep.
Um, and I don't talk to Adam as much, but I know that you certainly very much do.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah. And then we'll fast forward again. Chris and I also graduated at the same time, super seniors, if you will.
Yeah, 4.5.
4.5. Yeah. Hmm. We also got into rock climbing and stuff like that our sophomore year.
Oh
That's
yeah.
what that's what I was forgetting too. We would go from towers to go rock climbing, all that good stuff.
Yep. It was like Borderlands 2 in my room or climbing. It was
Which
one
we
of
never
those two.
we never finished Borderlands
No, we
2.
didn't.
We didn't, which was weird because we played it so much, and then we're like, all right, we're done.
Yep.
But I think we just kind of realized, like, hey, like, we're getting closer to, it's probably like a finals time
So
or
we should
something like
study.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like
Priority.
that. Yeah, it's like,
We
hey,
can
you
we can
remember
still
that
close
thing?
that loop.
You remember?
We
Yeah,
can
we
still
could.
finish.
But why? Yeah, let's just leave it open, right? We could say that we'll always finish it 50
Right.
years from now, right? And I guess we'll fast forward again. After we graduated, I think you and I did lose. We didn't have a falling out by any means, but we did lose touch. Like,
Yeah.
just life, I think.
I will say though, it was a pretty foundational friendship moment for me. Not just with you, but the way I see a lot of friends is there was a time, David, I don't know if you remember, we hung out and it was after like repeated, I was like busy, like conflicts came up. And
Yeah.
you told me, because you were a good enough friend at the time, you were like, bro, if you didn't come tonight, I probably would have said, this friendship's probably over. Like I've
Huh.
been putting in my effort. And at that time I hadn't. Like admittedly, I really,
Hmm.
call it excuses, call it being
Yeah.
distracted. But yeah, you told me, bro, if you didn't come tonight, like this probably would have been, and we wouldn't be here, right? Like
Yeah.
it's
Wow.
wild.
It's
But you
almost
were
it's almost sad hearing that. Not almost sad. It is sad hearing that. What a ultimatum guy I was back in the day.
but it was the good kind. Like it
uh,
actually spurred me on to remember that friendships are important to contribute to, and they do go
yeah.
both ways. And yeah, so I'm actually really grateful for that. For
Do
that,
you remember where we were hanging out by chance?
we were in my car in front of Friley.
Huh. Sounds
Yeah,
like something we would do.
right. I forget where we went, but
Hmm.
that's kind of what you led that night with. And
I wonder if it was a movie night. We might have went to a movie, because I do remember we did go to the movies once with that crew from Towers. I can't remember what movie it was, but
me neither.
I digress. It's interesting because you bring up that ultimatum, and then I remember on, you call that a foundational way of how you treat, or how you looked at friendships.
Yeah.
And on the episode that I had with Katie, she and I shared a class, microeconomics.
Hmm.
And there was a time she kept skipping class for a lot of reasons. We talked about how she suffered through mental health issues, and
Yeah, dude.
and was really just at a point where she just didn't want to get up. But that professor always did a pop quiz every single week, and he wouldn't tell you what day it was, though, right? We knew
Mm.
it'd be on one day. It was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but we didn't know which one of those three. And so she had messaged me after not showing up for
Mm.
several lectures, saying, "Hey, did we have a pop quiz?" And again, I apologized to her profusely in the podcast, but I had said to her, like, "Katie, I'm not your mom. I'm your friend. Get to class." And like, I was like, "What?" Well, I don't know what possessed me in that moment, you know.
Yeah.
And I was telling her, I was like, maybe it's just like I grew up my whole life being the Asian kid that gave people homework, answers to their homework, right?
Mm.
And like it was like rinse and repeat here in college. And I didn't want to like continue that cycle. And so I was just like Katie, like you should want to do well too. And she also is like that was like a core something that stuck with her
Mm.
as well. So now I'm wondering if I would, and everyone I met over there, I said some dumbass thing. to,
Right.
all my friends were like, "Hey, do you remember when David said this to us, man?" Like, oh no.
There's like an open mic night where
Mm.
everyone there has been given some kind of ultimatum.
Yeah. Well, we should do a roast of David Sheets and just invite everyone from college and be like, "Hey, do you remember when David said this stuff?" But
I'm terrible at roasting. I like
you'd be up
my
there like, David, you're just the best hair.
yeah. My
And just
roommates used to like make fun of me. They'd be like, "Chris, roast us right now," and I'd be like, "It's just like not in my. It's not my first skill."
you'd be like, "I wish we spent more time together."
Right. Annoyingly,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. So, um, we did lose touch after we graduated, and rightfully so. You went off to move to Wisconsin. Um, I moved down to St. Louis, and you were kind of just starting that life. You had officially. How long had you? Because you had been dating Kelsey for a little while, right? At that point, at least a semester, because she graduated ahead of us.
Yep. Yeah. So
And
we started dating my last semester,
mhm.
our 4.5. Mm-hmm.
And that was a nice little love story too, of like she was going on a plane and you confess your love, and she's like, "Chris, I can't." Flies off into the Neverland, and
Hey,
then
so, sometimes the timing is the worst. Like
yeah,
it made no sense to like drop that bomb as she was about to go embark on this adventure, but sometimes you got to shoot your shot,
yeah,
and you feel it. You just gotta let them
yeah.
know.
And at the end of the day, the worst thing that could have happened was she said no. Funny enough, she did say no. But then how long did it take? Was it like 2, 3 days? And she was like, "Chris,
I
this
wish I
wasn't."
could be like 24 hours, baby.
She was on the flight. She said, "Turn this plane around, pilot." I got a man waiting for me.
it's it's actually so she we didn't really start like dating and having that conversation until she got back. Like so
Mhm.
basically I confessed my feelings and then she left. And then I had like an older mentor. He told me, he was like, "Chris, don't talk to her. Like you need to give her space, like let her do her thing." At this
Yeah.
time I was interning, like you do your thing, like basically ghost her for her good and mine. At the time
Yeah.
that felt like really noble. I was like, "You're right. Yeah." But then in hindsight, she was like, "Chris, that was the worst thing you could have done. Like, I just wanted to talk to you. Like, I can't believe you ghosted me after telling me
Yeah.
that you." And then I run that
Yeah.
back and I'm like, yeah, that's fair.
It's fair, but it does run a little bit true into that, like distance makes the heart grow fonder type of thing.
Yeah.
And it is an interesting, and by no means would I go as far as like call it manipulation, right? But there is an interesting push and pull of like the moment you get into this position where you fear losing somebody, you do lose that power. Like, of,
Mm.
for instance, like how do I say this without, how do I want to articulate this? If the moment someone knows that you're afraid to lose them, then that chase is gone. And sometimes that chase is nice, right? That feeling of being
Mm.
wanted. But then also, um, I think there's some type of attractiveness to someone that's willing to just work on themselves and they have their goals and they don't compromise that for
Mm.
another person, right? Because if you are willing to compromise, you say your dreams or your aspirations, then how committed were you really to making yourself a better person, right?
Mm.
So, because that's what's attractive, a guy with goal or guys with goals, a future that they can see. And yeah, there might be
Mm.
a special someone in that future, but that person has to come along naturally, I guess, in the plot. Um,
And
anyway, that's yeah.
there's a give and take too. Like for at that time when we were engaged, I was in Madison, she was in
Hmm.
Chicago,
Hmm.
and I had a really good thing going in
You did?
Madison. Like my job, my friend group, my church, like I loved the city. And she had her very good thing going here too. And that was the pickle we were in, where I was like, if we wanted this to work, one of us is gonna have to I said I give. It sounds like somebody's conceding, but it was actually kind of a leap of faith to say, I will sacrifice this current
Yeah.
gig, trusting that where I could go, which in this case was Chicago, has what's in store for me.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't know
Let's
right away, but I can say now, I was supposed to come to Chicago.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. So we had a falling, I don't want to say falling out. We lost touch
Mm-hmm.
because our lives moved on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there came a point, I'm not sure what it was. I know that I probably initiated it. Um, but I, had reached out to you, say, hey, like, how you doing? Like, hey, like, let's catch up. Let's get a phone call, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
This was back when I was living in my old apartment. And I just remember it would probably be like maybe once every couple weeks, or maybe it would be like once a month. And
Yeah. That sounds
interestingly
right.
enough, it ended up that the gaps between them, it still got longer and longer. But we would catch up. We'd spend an hour on a call, or sometimes it would go even longer
It would be
unexpectedly.
like 2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
And we would just catch up. And I remember the Chris that was so stressed about his fiance being in Chicago, and he was in Madison, Wisconsin because life was good, but there was just that there's this distance between you guys. And
Mm.
I just remember you say, I mean, I'm not sure if you were looking for advice. I'm not really sure if I gave you advice, but I do remember just saying, Chris, like, you're wanting all these answers in such a short period of time. You're looking for opportunities in the Chicago area, nothing's hitting. And but you still have a good thing going on in Wisconsin, everything, that dynamic hasn't changed. So just continue to trust the process, right?
Mm.
Just just let time do its thing. And I felt like nothing was landing like for quite some time. Every time I call you, to be like, man, there's nothing that nothing's ringing true. And then and I kept saying like, and obviously you and I are, men of faith. And I was like, hey man, like you got to believe in that something's going to work out for you at the end of the day. You just got to give it time. And the the blessing that happened was probably COVID.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm
I know
that
a lot
guy
of
that
people.
was like, COVID was great.
Yeah, I know a lot of people obviously suffers from all of this, but
Yeah.
a silver lining for good old Chris Sybil initially was the conversations that started with your job there at Land's End, where
Mm-hmm.
your manager was like, hey, Chris, we've been working from home and doing all this stuff for such an extended period of time. There's, we're working with the idea that maybe you could work home from home while you're in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you drive to the office in Wisconsin maybe once a week or something like that.
Yep.
And so that door opened up. I don't think that conversation ended up bearing any fruition, right? Or
Well, it
did it?
did. Yeah, I
Okay.
worked from Chicago remotely for like over a year.
Okay, with Land's End.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what ended up happening too then is while you were working from remote, you have found a different position that you're in now
Yeah.
that I think from what you've told me before rings much more truer to what you were looking to do, or you find more it's different, right?
Yeah, it's definitely different, and that's why I took it. Right?
You know,
Is
when I do this, I kind of skipped over that whole like let Chris introduce himself kind
oh
of
yeah,
thing. So, tell me a little bit like, kind of where you grew up from, how you ended up at Iowa State, and then what you do now.
yeah, yep. So I grew up 20 minutes south of Rockford, Illinois, in a
Mm,
small rural town called Byron.
mm,
And I like to say in Byron, everyone knows everyone and everyone knows corn,
mm.
which is definitely like that's a very stereotypical phrase. But that's honestly a great town.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I grew up in Byron and then went to Iowa State where I met you. I,
Why Iowa State?
oh, it's actually really funny. I only visited because my brother did. He was visiting there, and at this time, I had no like major in mind. I was like a jack of all trades, master of none. I was like,
Ah,
okay, at everything. I had no leaning,
yeah,
um, just a class clown, like no
yeah.
ambition. And
Interesting.
so I was going to stay local, actually. I think my
Oh.
parents were probably like, keep this guy around, like discover yourself. And then, but then,
Was there
yeah.
like a local community college or something like that in Byron
Oh,
or
yeah.
yeah,
Yep. There's one in Rockford. And yeah, so Connor went to Iowa State for a visit. And my dad was like, just tag along, like
just tag along.
get out of school, check it out. And I got there, and you know the campus, it's
I've been
beautiful,
there.
right? Like,
Hmm.
I mean,
I
campus
visited
wise,
too.
it's stunning. And even when like
Yeah,
my mom saw it, and she's like, I want to go here. Like,
yeah.
and then Illinois tuition is so whack that it was cheaper for me to go to Iowa State out of state than to go
Hmm.
anywhere in state. So I think my parents saw the tuition, they were like, oh yeah,
They're like, he doesn't need to find himself around us anymore.
like you could even be undeclared. Like,
Yeah,
and I started as an ag business major
yeah,
because
yeah.
I really was passionate about agriculture.
Oh, I could tell. You
Which
just screamed corn.
I'll forever. I mean, like I'm actually super honored to say my twin brother today
Yeah.
walked and got his PhD.
Wow.
He is Dr. Sybil, and he lives and breathes like crop sciences and soil science, and that's like his lifeblood
When did he get that?
today.
Yeah, okay. You said today. I was like, wait, today.
May 15th, 2022. Yeah,
Wow.
my twin brother is a doctor of agriculture, and that's
Wow.
amazing. And he's so passionate about it, but I wasn't.
Yeah. How long did it
So then
take you to find out that ag business wasn't the
um, one of my favorite moments was Econ 101, but it was like the ag biz version. And our professor
Yeah.
was like, everyone stand up and say your name, where you're from, and your background. And you'd have some guy be like, my name is Rick. I'm from Jessup, Iowa. I raise 600 head of cattle and can't wait to keep doing that. This
Wow.
just like supremely cool, badass guy. And then I was like, hey, everyone. I'm Chris.
Pushes up
I,
glasses.
I had a couple of sheep and some goats.
My
And
mom raises corgis.
literally, I was like, I had some pet livestock, and that's all I got. And just like, I remember getting looks of people like, what is this guy?
Mm.
Like,
They're
okay,
like, this
man.
guy's not gonna make it.
I mean, pretty much. Yeah. Which was, and they were right. So
Yeah,
then I
people don't really
eventually,
know how cutthroat the ag business world is.
and and they were good people. Like there are some
Yeah.
awesome, men and women there, but it just wasn't for me.
Hmm.
So then I pivoted into marketing and then apparel. Graduated, went to Land's End, where I was
Yeah.
merchandising men's apparel, loved it. And now I'm in Chicago, merchandising furniture for HNI Workplace Furnishings.
Nice. Hashtag ad.
Hashtag ad, sponsored
Not a
by.
sponsor.
I gotta say, the chair that I'm in is from the company I work for, and it's top shelf.
Oh yeah, they gave you the hookup.
I had to buy it, but
Oh,
but it's
we love this company.
yeah, it's like the memes of just a struggling workforce, and management's like, we have just the idea.
Yeah.
Pizza party.
God, yeah.
One
Hey,
slice.
can we get better accommodations, more flexible work schedules? It's like potluck on Thursday.
Yeah. Did you say maternity leave? Oh, we don't do that. But we have coupons for Little Caesars.
Yeah. Nice. You know,
So yeah.
I hinted at Chris's mom there as a joke, but Chris and I tried so hard, or at least I feel we tried so hard to make this podcast be in person. His sister lives here in the St. Louis area, and Chris and I are both parents to sibling corgis.
Uh-huh.
Good old Murphy, Sybil, and Xena Sheets. And there was going to be like the corgi reveal in my head, like what I was picturing, like,
Yeah.
hey, like you'd bring Murphy down to St. Louis, probably an Airbnb or something that allowed for pets, and then do a nice little 30-second cameo of the dogs and let them run around in the apartment, or have Kelsey like take them away so that
Right.
we could do this.
Yeah.
And just schedule wasn't allowing for it. And who knows, we still might. I mean, eventually you'll come visit your sister maybe one day, if you
Okay.
really loved her.
I should probably do that.
And certainly at that time we'll catch up.
Oh yeah.
But when I the reason I brought Chris on again too, though, talking about gratitude, because that was something that I kind of had to come to terms with when I went through kind of the changes that went through what happened last year with me. And the first thing I did when I went through what I did was reach out to old friends. And that was also the foundation for the start of what the idea of what the podcast was going to be. And why don't I do this before I kind of go super depth for this? Let's take a quick break. There's Murph. All right, fine. You're back.
Young Murph, young Smurf.
Where? You're gonna make me pick you up because you're on the couch. You're the Stan Lee of the David Sheets podcast.
Yeah. Smurf, look who it is.
Xena, I see that Murph is also the same when it comes to being held like this.
He's normally pretty good, but he's just very curious.
Xena, can you see your brother? Xena, look.
Murph, do you recognize her? Yeah. Wow, it's happening.
They look nothing alike. Xena.
But now that their mom has had a new litter, these guys are old news.
Yeah, you guys have younger siblings that you don't even know.
Old news, bro.
How much does Murphy weigh now?
Yo, he's like 30 pounds.
She's like 26 or 27. She chomped.
He's thick.
Yeah, like I was getting worried because like there's this bar by us called Bar K that I was going to take you if you ever do eventually come to St. Louis.
Yeah.
Where there's just like hundreds of dogs, and
Oh
Xena's the biggest corgi out of all of them there.
Really?
Like, there's some super skinny corgis. I don't know if it's because it's the other like breed of corgi.
Maybe they're not purebred like ours.
Maybe you're just short tongue. But
all right, Murph, I can put him away. Just want him to make a guest appearance.
Say bye, Xena. Wink.
You get Murph. Too funny.
Corgi cameo is officially. Wait.
We did it.
So what I was saying is the essence of why the podcast got started. I mean, I talked about it a little bit too on the episode that'll air before this with my friend Quinn Fowler from growing up in my hometown,
Mhm.
was reconnecting with old friends. And Chris was kind of a textbook example of the friend that I continuously made an effort to like reconnect with, or like make sure um, not too much time went off without catching up. And I remember when things got bad, all I all I could do was talk to old friends, and um, Chris is probably one of the first. Cena's outside whimpering now because I won't let her in. But Chris was one of the first friends that I reached out to after my previous relationship ended in a way that, just wasn't the way I had hoped. And to quote you, Chris, you said, that we had made an effort to have, our periodic phone calls or whatnot, but you said that you were going to make a conscious effort to be a good friend
Hmm.
and be there. And that was big for me. Probably bigger than you can know, and probably bigger than I can describe.
Hmm.
Um, and I guess, was there anything specifically different this time that I had reached out to you versus all the other times we had called in the past, or to where it led you to that decision?
Yeah, that's in a friendship, it should never be something bad happening to bring you back together. Or like
Yeah.
you shouldn't be fair weather friends, for lack of a better
Yeah.
phrase. But there is a degree of like healthy ramping up of connection when something bad happens,
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
is sobering and it is a wake up call that,
Yeah.
I mean, when you see your friends suffering through anything, like you feel it too. And it jolts you as much as they've been jolted. And yeah, like I said, you never want something bad to be the reason that you reconnect, but in a crazy optimistic way, I'm like glad that it did,
Yeah.
because that was the catalyst that got us to the last year of like our best
Yeah.
connections yet.
That's the crazy thing. It's been 6 months um, since, yeah, I guess I initially reached out to you again. Fastest half year of my life.
Yeah, no kidding.
And, uh, it'd be, it's interesting because I didn't start the podcast right away after that. And I even remember you on one of our phone calls of reconnecting. I was like, hey, like, I'm thinking of starting a podcast. Hey, I just bought like $800 worth of furniture. I bought this like this like a $2,000 laptop, microphone. And it's just, and then you were like, wow, you like really like went all in, because once you buy it, it's like, oh, this is like real.
Yeah, yeah.
It's real. And because again, the podcast is a way to kind of, Chris. So when I always describe how the podcast gets started, I say, I had access to my family to support me through it. I can afford, luckily, things like therapy through work and stuff like that. But and a lot of people just aren't fortunate enough for that. And then I had a very good
Hmm.
friend group. When I say I had a very good friend group, uh, the person that flashed up in my mind, it was Chris,
Hmm.
Drew, and Sadie. Which um, I think it's sad that some of my, I have great friends here in the St. Louis area too, but um, I don't know. Some friends just feel like home. You know what I mean? And um, trying to trying to think of like kind of the impact or the significance of that was, but uh, and there's probably a lot of people listening, watching too, that when they go through poor experiences life, and in my case was just a sad breakup. It would be just nights of this gut wrenching feeling, like someone was just like
Mm,
grabbing your like your stomach and just like ripping a hole in you. It
mm,
was such a weird feeling, right? It's amazing the physical impacts that your emotions can play when they manifest themselves. Just long nights of and now it sounds like the stereotypical breakup of like when you're much younger and like you can't get over, but it was a very impactful relationship for me, and still one that I very much do cherish, and I'm thankful for. That's another
mm,
thing. I throughout all of that, I'm still very much thankful for that relationship and everything that it brought for me,
mm.
which is why it was so hard when it ended and had to step away from it. And the reason why today's episode will revolve and continues to revolve around gratitude was um, when Chris kind of opened up that door to say that he'll make a conscious effort to be there. It wasn't like me thinking like, okay, like I need to just lean on Chris at all times now. That wasn't it. And that's not
Mm.
what I did either. But I did know like if I had that gut wrenching feeling that I couldn't shake, I'd just be like, hey man, do you have time for like 5 minutes? And it was always yeah.
Mm.
And then, as the months went on, it became like, hey, let's schedule this out because
Yeah, yeah.
there's only so much that I would ask of Chris, um, and notably too, there would be times where the person on the phone, the David on the phone that he was talking to, would be a polar opposite of who it was the last time as well. One time, it'd be I'm on top of the moon. The next time I call him, like, oh, like everything's in the gutter.
Yeah.
and you know
Life, man.
and I'll apologize too, because obviously as the friend on the other end of the phone, watching me flip flop through that and then throwing all that burden onto you as well, it's not an easy thing to do, because you have to sit there and be like, how do I respond to this, right? How do I give an appropriate response in my energy to this guy that is a whole state away, and I can't really be there in the way that maybe he needs, right?
That's
um
part of being a good friend is like, I don't need you to fill out a questionnaire before you call to be like, all right, David is a 7 today on emotional distress. He physically is a 4. And
mhm.
he'd like me to know prior to our call that, like,
Have you been around anyone that's been exposed to COVID or COVID-like
yeah,
symptoms in the last 2 weeks?
like, does that context help? Sure. But at the end of the day, being good friends means you pick up the phone
Yeah.
expecting anything, but still picking it up.
That was the thing, though, is Chris did get anything or everything when he got a phone call from me, because he probably, no, not probably, he was the person that got the most life updates for me as far as how I was changing into the person that I am today.
Hmm.
And I think the great thing is too, 6 months later, those gut wrenching nights, they don't exist anymore. I can confidently say where I'm at in life right now, it's a very good place,
Hmm.
and that life had a way of treating me very well. The funny thing is, life always was treating me well, but then when you go through stuff like that, you kind of forget that you lose that gratitude for the stuff that you have. But then
Hmm.
also, um, I did not have an appreciation for some of my more interpersonal skills that allowed me to continue to grow and network and build community and passion over the last 6 months with some of the things that I do now that I'm involved with.
Hmm.
And um, so the episode, this podcast is almost just like I wanted to, we ended up spending much more time on how Chris and I met, but it was almost
Yeah.
like I had planned in my head, like, I just want to spend an hour saying thank you to Chris Sipple and
Hey.
the person that he is. That was my goal. I was like, I'm just going to tell Chris, like, hey, thanks, man. Thanks for being there. Um,
Hey,
and
it
I
takes
hope
two to tango. So,
it
I'm,
does. And I do salsa, not tango now. So maybe we'll do some salsa sometime. But
that joke, I was like
um,
sitting on that joke this whole time. Not joke,
mhm,
that like perfect pun, but
mhm. we'll work on it.
I'll devise
And
a new one.
yeah, anytime that you and Kelsey come to St. Louis, we'll spend a night at the salsa club. Um,
That'll be good. That's my boy.
so
Mm-hmm.
anyone listening or anyone watching, I do hope that you guys have a Chris Sybil in your life, someone that does in fact give themselves up in a way that um, you can't ask anyone to, right? I didn't ask Chris to put in a conscious effort to be a good friend, and um, without the waterworks coming on to the YouTube. Uh, uh, Again, I hope everyone has someone that they don't have to ask to be a Chris Sybil. So, um, yeah, and you talk about being fair weather fans. I'll transition now away from uh, thanking Chris Sybil for what he is in my life. Um, but again, a reiteration of what I truly believe a friend is, right? Which is everything's fine when things are going good in your life. You have people you hang out with, but a real friend is when things aren't going so hot and they don't leave you high and dry, you know. And a lot of that too comes from, I kind of had to swallow some. I'm not sure if I call it pride, but I had to get to a point where admitting that this life that I thought was so great isn't so great, and I have to reach out to someone and say, hey, like my life's not so great right now, and um, not that you can change that, but it'd be nice if you could just listen. And so again, I hope that people listening who have friends, but maybe they are struggling and going through situations that are out of their control, or you feel a certain type of way. And the last thing you want to do is bother that friend with your burdens. You have to understand that, like, that's what a true friend is for.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, is you'll find out who, in fact, is a true friend, right? And so maybe if you reach out to people, they don't respond the way that you had hoped. Well, that might also be a blessing in disguise. Saying like, well, what was this person actually giving me in our friendship? Because it might not have been a whole lot. Um, yeah, that'll be my last 2 cents on that matter. But an
Hmm.
interesting thing too, when I talk about things that we can and can't control, and something that allowed me to get to where I am at, is focusing, in fact, on what you can control. I don't know if you remember, but I was having a bad day, and I had messaged you. I said, "Hey, Chris, like your life seems so good, man." And admittedly, you've been very blessed, uh, and which is such a wonderful thing. And I think I'm in a spot too where I also just very much enjoy seeing all my friends just succeed in whatever success means. Really, just like
Yeah.
life is
Yeah.
flourishing. I'm not sure if you would agree your life is flourishing, but that's what I would see from outside looking in.
It's things are really good.
Yeah, and you gotta be careful what you say, because Kelsey's gonna listen to this, so you better say that. She's gonna watch this later. She's like,
Yeah.
no, I have the best wife in the world,
Yeah.
beautiful, great mother to our dog. I mean, I would be lost without her.
Yeah. The list is long.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I messaged you and said, hey, Chris, like, do you ever have bad days? And admittedly, you're like, well, yeah, of course. There are bad days. And then I said, okay, well, what makes a day bad for you?
Hmm.
And your response was, a day is bad for me when there's something that goes wrong that is, in fact, out of your control and you can't change it. And it's comforting, um, interestingly enough, when you say, and people listening, the moment you realize that something is, in fact, out of your control, then you have a lot of power in yourself, because the only thing you can, in fact, control then is how you respond to that situation. A lot of times we don't have a lot of control in our lives, but the thing we can't control is, in fact, our emotional response. Our
Hmm.
emotions are. I was watching this short clip. I think it was like I don't know. The guy gave off like monk vibes, or like a Dalai Lama vibe kind of guy,
Sure.
and he was just asking this person, is like, when things go wrong, do you get angry? And the person was like, well, yeah. And he's like, do you like being angry? And the person, well, no. And he's like, well, why is your first response to be angry then? Like if your first response was in fact to just sit and look at what you have, or just let your first response be something else than anger,
Mm.
then the situation might not be as bad as you allow it to be. So if
Yeah,
you,
it
yeah,
well, I was gonna say like not like a pushback, but there are some raw emotions that are good. Like
sure,
anger, there's like righteous anger or like justified anger, right? Like
yeah,
when you see somebody downtrodden or abused, or like
sure,
that should make you angry. And that's like a different tangent
hmm,
though. But I did want to say like sometimes
there is
you
healthy anger.
you can actually look at something wrong in the world and feel anger that is right and good, and that
Hmm,
would maybe propel you to action.
yeah,
But that's kind of a different. But I felt like it was worth
no,
plugging.
that is a good mention. Yeah, there is healthy anger. And again, I mean, we talk about it many times on this podcast about, validating your feelings, and you have every right to feel every emotion that you do.
Yeah.
Um, the I think the more the purpose of that video was when you get acted upon
Hmm.
in a certain manner, um, not perpetuating that negative experience on your own end. And because for instance, we can't control how other people's emotion or how other people react in situations either. The only person you can control is yourself.
Hmm.
um, Although there are many people that try to control other people as well, and they have their own set of issues.
Right.
uh, yeah. So if I was to kind of summarize today's conversation, it would be to look for the things that you're grateful for.
Hmm.
um, then also some things that maybe you don't realize you have, and then making a conscious decision to say, hey, like, what could this end up being? Right. I made a conscious decision of trying to give to this community, listening to this podcast, access to my life, right? Both the struggles and the joy of it. Again, very full of gratitude that the fact that
Hmm.
more recently there's more joy than sadness.
Hmm.
Um, I made a conscious effort with my friends to say, like, is there a way where I can deepen the connections with people that I, um, you know, either lost touch with, or even people I still stay connected with, but didn't really know what was going on in their lives. And I'll talk about that too a little bit with the episode before this, as we're filming, since I'm doing kind of a double filming since I'll be gone next weekend. So
Oh, that's right.
um, speaking with my good friend Quinn Fowler from growing up, and no, it's just coming more full circle. Um, but just catching up with friends that you think that you know them very well, then in fact don't, and it kind of gave me some insights. Like, man, was I really a good friend? You know, I think that was the silver lining too of all this experience, was like I had all these friends, and when I actually took the time and effort to get to know about them a little bit more, I thought, well, maybe I didn't know this person nearly as well as I thought.
Hmm.
Right. And so I am thankful. Huh. I am thankful for the last 6 months, you know.
Feels weird to say that out loud, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Um, I'll let Mr. Sybil um end things out here. Was there any final thoughts, things we touched on that maybe I probably interjected with and stopped you, or
No. I think gratitude is it's a powerful force, right? But I've also seen, and I've done it myself, that call it gratitude or optimism can be this steamroller that comes in and overrides any acknowledgement of hardship, things that are tough. It's like this kind of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, like Yankee optimism that is like, everything is fine. Like, I will just work harder and I will, there's this mindset that says, there's a gratitude that's not helpful. It's like, you never want to tell your kid, like, you should be grateful, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a really poor way to teach gratitude, because then it causes you to not focus on the hard things
Yeah.
because it
You
makes you
almost
feel
resent.
guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I shouldn't be focused on whether it's your emotions or you're sad, or like I shouldn't cry or I shouldn't. And what that gets you is this like externally optimistic powerhouse of a human who inside has like taken all of their
Yeah.
emotional complexes and pain and boxed it up and put it really far away.
Hmm.
And then you have a volcano of a human like 10 years later.
Yeah.
So gratitude, it's powerful, but it's nuanced too. It like has
Yeah.
to be done right.
Okay. And then I think this is an easy answer, but Chris Sybil, what is the thing you are most grateful for in your life?
Ooh, gosh, I'm torn between zebra cakes and breath in my lungs.
Hmm.
I love
I think
zebra
this.
cake.
I think it's the zebra cakes.
What am I most grateful for? I don't pray as much as I should, but something I often say is, God, thank you for another day with you, with my wife, with my friends. But the consistent thing is, thank you for another day
Hmm.
to give life a shot, right? Thank you for a new start. Thank you for an opportunity to maybe do something better than I could have done yesterday. But yeah, just grateful for another day.
Okay. Grateful for another day. And I will just say that I am grateful for for you, for all my friends that continue or have been on the show, for all the people listening and watching. And if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe, share this with anyone you know kind of going through a tough time that maybe feels like they're alone. Um, maybe they don't realize it, but you might be their Chris Sybil uh, to their David Sheets, right? And as always, if you or anyone you know feels like you need a friend, you can come meet mine. And we'll see you all next Saturday. Thanks again, Chris.